finally here, Super Bowl 50. Arthur and I even dressed up for the occasion. We're going to break down the game between the Denver Broncos and Carolina Panthers. Is it Peyton Manning's last stand? Does he ride off into the sunset? Or do the dabbing Panthers finish their Cinderella season? Arthur, let's look at what happens when Denver has the football. I think maybe the matchup we're talking about the most is Peyton versus that Carolina pass defense, who looks to pick off a pass almost every time. And Peyton had trouble keeping the ball to his teammates during the regular season.
If that's the matchup that Denver's focusing on, then it's going to be a long day for the Broncos. I think we both agree it's all about running the football. C.J. Anderson has had the hot hand. That's just the nature of Gary Kubiak's offense. Really, any NFL offense, you need to establish the run in order to be able to set up those play-action opportunities that Manning enjoys so much. So we'll see if Ronnie Hillman can get going. He brings a little bit more speed to the table, but clearly Anderson, as I said, 4.6 yards per carry in the playoffs, has been the hot hand, and it starts with Luke Kuechly, K'Wan Short, really up and down the Carolina defense, playmakers at every level.
And here's something to also watch in that matchup. Demaryius Thomas been very quiet in this postseason. Owen Daniels stepped up. We know Emmanuel Sanders had a big game against New England. Outside Josh Norman, not a ton of playmakers in that Carolina secondary. If Peyton can get going, if he can get time, there's options and advantages he could exploit.
Yeah, those guys are talking about Robert McClain and Cortland Finnegan, both on the street until December, and no one's really had an opportunity to get into that, potentially vulnerable coverage, but we'll see. Denver does have the playmakers on the outside, so we'll see if they're able to. A couple other guys to keep an eye on. Kurt Coleman, not everyone knows his name. He led the NFC in interceptions this year, a really good ball hawk. Of course, Thomas Davis, the perennially underrated and now one-armed Thomas Davis. It's going to be fun just to watch him suit up. He's got to be one of the most fearless guys in the NFL.
I believe the over-under for him is 5.5 tackles with that broken arm, so we'll see what he does there. Okay, other side of the ball, Cam Newton, Jonathan Stewart, that Mike Shula rushing attack. Carolina's going to load the box. They're essentially going to say, we're going to run it through you until you stop us. Problem is the Broncos have the best run defense in terms of yards per carry in the league during the regular season, so that's going to be maybe the most important matchup in terms of dictating how this game goes.
Yeah, no doubt. Mike Shula's offense is going to stick with the run, too. There's so many ways that they can attack a Denver defense, so they will try in a multitude of ways, but like you said, that is an attacking Denver defense, very stout up the middle. Malik Jackson and Wolf have really become stars this season, and Trevathan and Marshall very good behind them, so going to be a terrific matchup to be sure. What I'm most excited about when it comes to the Denver defense and Wade Phillips, what kind of tricks does he have up his sleeve this time? Remember, it was the 3 and 4 man rushes that got after Tom Brady. I'd imagine there may be a little bit more aggression, a little more varied game plan to try and get after Cam Newton.
Well, I think they can trust their corners when you have Aqib Talib and Chris Harris Jr. and Bradley Roby and TJ Ward at safety going against a Panthers receiving core. I know Cam Newton steps up, defends them, but it's not the greatest receiving core in the world. When you look at Ted Ginn and Devin Funchess and Corey Brown, Greg Olson's been outstanding for them, but when you look at that matchup, another reason to run the ball a lot, to try to keep those pass rushers back, but when Cam Newton tries to throw the ball, that's going to be where Denver, if they're going to win the game, it's got to be right there. That pass defense is going to have to create turnovers and make big plays.
Yeah, it's a great point by you, and Phillips knows his personnel. He knows the flexibility that those Pro Bowl caliber corners offer him. So, and I mentioned Kurt Coleman, kind of the journeyman safety for the Panthers. We should mention Darian Stewart, too. He has been the other guy. Everyone talks about TJ Ward. He's been really good for the Broncos, but both of those guys are banged up. So while Carolina's receivers doesn't really scare anyone, they do have speed. Ted Ginn, he does one thing, but he does it really well. So against kind of a nicked-up safety core, can they find a way to get on top of the Denver defense? It's obviously the last thing the Broncos want to have happen.
Maybe the biggest disparity in this matchup on paper is Carolina in the red zone, second in the league in scoring touchdowns. Denver 25th in the league. You got to get points when you can. Of course, they don't play the games on paper. Arthur, they play them on the field. So I'll leave it to you. What's your pick for Super Bowl 50?
I'm not really going out on a limb here, but I will say I think it's going to be more competitive. I think the line is creeping up to 5.5, 6 points. I think the Broncos cover. I think Peyton Manning plays well, but I just don't think he can avoid any turnovers because Carolina is just too good at turning it over. I'm going to say Panthers 24, Broncos 20. Cam Newton, the MVP of the regular season. He's going to be the MVP of the Super Bowl as well.
Not going to choose some random guy, maybe a Malcolm Butler or somebody like that.
It's probably more likely to happen.
Be the MVP. Always guys like that step out. But hopefully it's a great Super Bowl. We've had a couple really close games the past few years. Three of the last 4 Super Bowls have been outstanding. Right. So I'm hoping for that, of course. I picked the Panthers.
I was going to say, you're not getting out here without a pick.
No, I did pick Carolina, 26-22. I like those goofy scores. I picked them all season when I was picking Bears games wrong. But I just think that the disparity between Carolina's offense and Denver's defense is a little bit, but the one between Denver's offense and Carolina's defense is way too much. And it'd be cool for Chicago fans to see Tillman, Greg Olson, Jared Allen, Ron Rivera get a Super Bowl ring. Of course, course, a lot of John Fox guys on the Denver side as well. So we all hope for a great game. Hub Arkush is out there in Santa Clara. He'll be covering the game for us, so be sure to check out all of his analysis and everything we do right here at ChicagoFootball.com.